Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. We're going to be finishing up the camo pen. I'm super excited, so I hope everybody's doing good today. So last time we did the body and the section on this guy, and it turned out pretty good so far, no problems. Here's an overhead view. It's looking pretty good. All the threads are smooth and it's looking nice. So all that we have left is the cap. And we're going to do something kind of fun with the cap. So this will go on the top here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to embed a little logo finial thing. Chad was just playing around on his fiber laser when I was down there for the open house. And he was like, hey, what do you think of these things? And I was like, oh, those are cool. So like I said, this isn't something that they sell or anything. This is just something that he was playing around with. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to embed that into the end of the cap. I think that'll be kind of a neat little addition. This is something that I've wanted to do anyway. It was kind of a plan when I first kind of started getting into this. There's other people that make these things. They put their logos in the top of the cap, and I was like, that's pretty fancy. And it's like, there's some things, like at least like with my schedule right now, I don't really have a lot of time to like sit and like figure out like all kinds of craziness with these fountain pens. I do basic ones and I try to do, I try to make them nice, but at the same time, I'm not going to spend like an hour doing some random thing just to make it a little bit nicer, like an incrementally nicer, fancy thing. But little things that don't take as much time or don't take me like learning some kind of a longer process are things that I'm definitely interested in. And this is one of those. So all you have to do is just drill a little hole at the end and then glue it in basically. So that's something that you can do, at the end of turning. If you want to do it, you can. If you're not, you don't like. This is one of those things where you don't have to completely change how you like anything about how you do. If you're just doing a 3-piece pen like the standard ones that I do, this is something that you can just add on if you want to. You don't have to change your process or anything. So I guess that's what I was trying to say is like I don't want to have to recreate the wheel to do add a little thing. This is something that you can just do on a whim. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll up and maybe not letting me scroll very well here. What's happening? It won't let me scroll in the chat window. Anyway, it looks like Michael McEwen was here first. Roman's here. And Bruce and who else? Jennifer's here. Kim is here. Nice. Mike Lexa's here. Mark L. Nice. Kevin's here. Nice. And Tim's in the house. Why isn't my scrolly wheel working? Does it work on it works everywhere else. Huh. I don't know. YouTube's just being silly, I guess. Let's see here. Did I miss someone? David Bingham. And Lelia's here. Bob. Welcome to the stream. And Paul, Harold's here. Got your blanks. You like the camo? Nice. The pink and the aqua themed blanks. Which ones were the pink and the aqua? I'm trying to. Oh, okay. So I think you ordered the pool party and the think pink maybe. I remember your order. I can't remember exactly what I put in the order. But that's cool. I'm glad you like the blanks. I can't wait to see it. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or if you want to email pictures, I always love seeing what everybody makes with the blanks. It's pretty cool. Yeah, the matte finish. So I don't know if you guys saw, Chad did a stream on Wednesday where they came out with a new kit, which is a pretty cool looking kit. It's called Strider. Totally different. It's not, not like super different from other pen kits or anything like that. It's one of the single blank, kind of longer tube, kind of longer blank ones. But it's a really interesting I don't know, like the components have some interesting features to them. So make sure to go check that out if you haven't seen it. But he made a pen with one of the camo blanks and did he didn't make that, I don't think, on the stream. I came in at like halfway or at the end. I'm pretty sure what he did on the stream was turn a Thoya burl. I don't even know how to say that. It was a burl pen. But before the stream, he made one with camo and did a matte finish on it, and it looked really good. So, ooh, the lathe buddies came in from Mark. Nice. Sweet. All right, so anyway, the camo blanks are available on my website. I got some sitting there. I'm trying to crank out more. They've been pretty popular, which I'm very excited about. So here's a link to that on my website. Don't forget, guys, if you are on the email newsletter, you also get discounts. They're on sale right now if you're on the newsletter. You would have had to have already been on there. But so if you're not on there, for future sales, the email newsletter folks get the sales. And I do them pretty regularly. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention here real quick. So I need readers at this point. So like when I'm turning and all that, I'm constantly switching. And one of the issues that you have, if you're doing something where you need safety glasses, the whole readers thing is kind of a pain, because I've tried a bunch of different things, and I don't know, you guys might already know all this stuff, but I'm new to it. So I'm going to show you the options that I have. So I have just readers. And what I had been doing for a while was like trying to figure out, okay, I can like put them over my things or under the things, and that was stupid. Then I bought these things. These are actually really awesome. A lot of people have these. You can just kind of keep them hanging. And so just for like whatever purpose, these things are pretty cool. It doesn't really work with a hat backwards, I'm finding out. And then you just click them, and then you got your readers, and then you can just drop them when you don't need them. Problem is, these aren't safety glasses, so that's great. Same problem, right? So I found safety glasses that have a little bifocal reader things in them. So they're just like a normal safety glasses thing on the top, and then on the bottom, go for the overhead view so you can see there's little bifocal things right down there. And they work really good. And they're also, I think they're like OSHA rated and all that stuff. So I wanted to drop a link to these because they're good safety glasses as well. I like them. One of the things that I like so the biggest thing for me though is I know that there's safety glasses where like the whole thing is a reader. That doesn't help me when I look up and do stuff. This bifocal type thing is really good. And I'm sure you can find, like, if you needed prescription bifocals for like the rest of it and everything, I'm pretty sure you can buy those somewhere. Oh, there's this little sticker on here. I've only used them a couple times. Well, I've used them plenty, but turned a few of those sample things. So I think you can order like safety glasses that have like all that kind of stuff, but these are just simple readers. If that's all you need with just a normal safety lens, not you know, anything going on. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. They work really well. And one of the things that I really like about having that bifocal thing is, like, you know, you wear them normal and, you know, this is the obvious stuff. I'm very new to glasses. I've never had glasses in my life. So like this whole thing is like an entire learning experience for me. But what I really like about having just the bifocal part is a lot of times I find myself kind of like dipping my head or like leaning over doing stuff. And what this kind of also helps is with my posture at the lathe, because it actually works best if I keep my head up and then just drop my eyes down to look through the things. And it actually keeps me in a better posture at the lathe. So I wanted to drop a link to these. I got them on Amazon and I'm very happy. They have like the strength things from like +1 to 4 and everything in between. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. So here's a link. If anybody wants to snag some of these things, this is what I'm going to be wearing. Now, if I'm just at the table saw, like there's certain things, like I have safety glasses all over the place, and oftentimes I don't need like the readers. I'm not reading things or like really looking at fine details. If I'm just cutting blanks, I don't need this stuff. It would just get in the way. But at the lathe, you know, it's definitely helping me. I was starting to have problems. Like I needed to have readers to kind of see what I was doing. So yeah, I keep telling people not to get old. I know. Well, but it definitely helps. You know, and I knew that my close eyesight was kind of getting worse and worse. Sort of. I think it's kind of stabilized at this point. But you know, I was having trouble reading stuff, and so, but like things slowly kind of like, especially if you've never had glasses or anything like that. Like you don't notice your vision kind of getting worse for some of these things. And I'll tell you what, it really helps when I'm doing, you know, turning. I can see what I'm doing, and it just makes it so much easier. So yeah, there's other ones where you can like put the things over your glasses and do different stuff. But like I said, if you're kind of in the same position as me where you don't really need glasses, because I went to the eye doctor and they gave me like bifocals and did all this stuff. Like I have a slight astigmatism. But what I'm finding is I don't need them like 90% of the time. And so for me to switch to an astigmatism prescription, like randomly, just here and there for like 5 minutes, or like, you know, driving home at night or something like that, it's not helping enough to make it worth it. Like I feel like I'm in a fishbowl. Like I'd have to wear them all the time. So, but for the reader stuff, for the close-up, I can't see. So I definitely need glasses for that stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to give you like a public service announcement. There are options for us who can't see close up. And these things are called click, if you're interested in this. This is great for just, I mean, I know a lot of people that actually have these, and they just literally all day just have these things just hanging on their neck. The one thing that I will say in a shop, I actually don't really, I thought these were going to be really awesome, but I actually don't like them because like if I'm at the table saw, it's kicking up a bunch of dust if I'm not wearing these things. Like, so depending on what you're doing, these may or may not, I'm finding they're not as useful as I was really hoping. So unfortunately. So, but these little bifocal reader safety glasses, they are the bee's knees for me. So let's head over to the lathe. Oh, there's one other thing that I wanted to kind of, I don't know. I just wanted to show you. I'm kind of working on that. I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I kind of did a couple samples with the terracotta color. And I wanted to show you guys and get like, I might even do a poll. I don't know how to do the poll. Let's do this. I'm going to set up a poll really quick. How do I do that? Start a poll. There we go. This is a tough question. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay. Hold on a minute. So I'm going to start a poll, and what I did for the poll was orange or red terracotta. Okay, so here's a couple samples that I made, and I don't know. This one's kind of tough, and I actually, for like, if you're going for like terracotta, like the pottery stuff and all that, I would definitely want to use this matte. So the question is, do you like this kind of redder one as a terracotta? Because there's like, terracotta is kind of a weird thing. There's like, you know, like the pots that you see that you put plants in, and I think this is pretty close to that. And then there's like red terracotta, which also there's like pottery things and like also paint and all that stuff. Let me know which one of these you like is the poll question. But also in the comments, that's why I was having a difficult time figuring out which one I liked, what to put for the poll. Like, do you like them at all? Like, is this even something that, because I would say that these two are probably I could maybe tweak this a little bit, like lightening things and kind of washing them out to make them look a little bit more like pottery stuff. The problem is we're dealing with plastic that's glossy a lot of times. So dulling it down with a matte finish would definitely get you a lot closer to that, you know, like real terracotta look, like pottery. But it is what it is kind of thing. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to get too much closer to any specific color. The other problem is there's so many, I mean, literally, if you look up terracotta, there's thousands of different shades of this stuff. It's not a color. It's a lot of different things. Yeah, like roof tiles. There's lots of different stuff, and it depends on what it is. So terracotta is kind of a tough one to like match because it's not a specific thing. And it is kind of more people, I think more people think of like, you know, the pottery, the terracotta stuff, or even like paint, like, what is the Italian kind of area? I can't think of the word, Tuscan paint schemes and things like that. So I don't know. Let me know, you know, what you guys think about these two colors. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to come out with one of these things. I don't know if there's going to be enough interest. So like that's why like red or orange is a question, but also is it even worth doing? Like, is this a color that you would actually really want? And I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm just I think there might be better colors to go after possibly. So Wild Hogs. I'm not sure what the Wild Hogs is. All right, so let's see here. A little between, well, that's the thing. Like I said, I mean, it's not a color. And the thing is, there's red terracotta, and then there's like the orange kind of terracotta. Like those are two totally different colors. So like going in the middle of them, you're actually not going to hit anything. Is how I feel about it. It's a tough one. That's why I'm like I'm on the fence about this color. We'll see. I don't know. I kind of have a couple that are. I did a couple that were kind of in the middle. I didn't love them particularly. That's the other thing. It's tough. I don't know. It's a tough one. Like, you know, the robin's egg blue. I know when I got it pretty dialed in. Yeah, I like them, and I don't want to say that I don't like the colors. Where my hesitation, trepidation with this color comes in is like, how popular is it going to be? How many people are like, oh, I really need to get that orange terracotta or red? That's the problem. Is I think that like again comparing to like tractor green, like a John Deere green, like that's just another color that I'm thinking about coming out with. I think people would be interested in that, and it's a good color. Like it's just that green is not a bad color to have in general, whether you're going for like something specific or not. These are they're a little bit more specific, I think. I think they would look really cool with different stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be, how easy it's going to be to make a terracotta pen out of these, I guess, is one of the things. And then is it really going to be popular enough for me to actually purchase enough quantity and move it, like sell it to really make it worth it. So anyway, just let me know what you guys think. I'm just spewing some of my thoughts. I have no opinion. I like the colors personally, and I would use them, but selling them, that's a different thing, you know. Yeah, can you market it? Which, you know, I can. I think, especially if I made some cool looking pens out of it, fine. But that's where I'm having a little bit of difficulty. Eventually, if I choose a color, I think what I'm going to do is there another? Yeah. I don't know. I have a few samples here. Just so you can see a couple different things that I've been kind of looking at too. So this is the one that I showed you. It's a little, and what I'm doing is trying to dull them down pretty good. And then there's this one. That one's not as dull. I kind of like that color quite a bit. I think one of the things is I'm going to have to put this into a blank and turn it and put a like a matte finish. So I've done a few different like shades of these things. I don't know. I kind of like that actually. That's not too bad. They're all good, like, and they all are a terracotta color, but I don't know. Anyway, so if you guys have any other thoughts, let me know. Orange, but a hint lighter. Yeah. And that's the tough thing is I'm always like, oh, should I really dull this down even more? Orange with red running through it. That's cool. Yeah, putting those two colors together would be pretty neat. That's fun. Like I said, I like the colors, but I'm just worried that it'll kind of sit on the shelf unless you really need terracotta, you know. Whereas like robin's egg blue, or quote unquote Tiffany blue, I don't think I'd have a problem selling that. Ooh, it just fit. Okay, so one thing that I did on this is this is just a little quick tip. I have in the past, I don't do this a lot or anything, but I have drilled out the wrong side, and it was on a pen where it was matched up, like it needed to be a certain way to kind of match the grain, or not grain, but the colors. And I drilled it on the wrong side. So now what I do is I put an X on where I need to drill out. That might help you. Just an idea that might be helpful for you guys when you're doing this stuff. So, did I drop a link to the safety glasses and the camo blanks? I think I did. There are links to both of them in the description. If I forgot, let me scroll. I got okay, I got links in both in the description, or in the chat window thing there, if you need to scroll up. But they're in the description of the video too. I'm actually gonna put this in just a little bit further, I think. There. Okay, so we're doing the cap, and then should be able to turn it today as well. So let's get our center drill rolling here. The cap's quick. That's one of the nice things about doing the cap today also. It's not going to take that long. I'm going to hit the dust collector now. May as well just do it. I'm going to get my phone ready so I can see the chat. Oh, I should have clicked that. Shoot. Let's see if I come up. Nope. That's not the one. Oh, is the thumbnail the wrong thumbnail? Hold on a minute. Huh. Well, that's ridiculous. Can I change the thumbnail? It's the wrong thumbnail. Oh, maybe. Huh. I don't know what I did, guys. Hold on a minute. Huh. Yeah, I totally messed that up. Well. Oh well. I'll fix it later. I had an updated thumbnail for today. Okay, so we got our phone. I can see the chat. Jim asked if I was adding the finial thing. Yes, I am. And I'll cover, I did a little experimenting with that. So I'll give you my thoughts about how to maybe proceed to do it. It's very simple, but I think there are a couple ways. We kind of talked about it, like router bit, drill bit, Forstner bit. There's like all kinds of different ways you could actually do it. And I tried a couple, and I'll tell you which ways I don't really think you should go. How about that? And I'll tell you what I'm planning to do down the road. All right, so I need a drill bit here. Where's my notes? I need my note. Okay. Just double checking my measurements here on there. On the bit. Yeah. Okay. Get a little WD-40 on that drill bit there. Okay, here we go. Zoom in a little bit there just to make things nice. Now, one thing that you could do is just skip this smaller. This is a 25/64. Technically, you could just skip this one and go with the larger. So, and this is for a 14 millimeter. You know, depending on what size you're going for, you do something a little bit different. I'm gonna switch this because my line was on the wrong. On the other side. Back my quill out a little bit. There we go. And in fact, the other thing I want to do is add a little WD in there. To make things smooth. It's not really going to change a whole lot on something that's not see-through, but it will reduce that heat buildup and it'll make the chips come out ever so smoothly. Technically, you could really kind of get away with it without doing it as long as you took smaller, you know, relatively small bites with the drill bit. Take about 4 rotations with the you know the dial there. But if you start feeling you know, if it starts getting kind of tight, like it's harder to turn the wheel, or you can kind of hear it like squeaking, that's a good indication to stop. Back it out, clear the chips because they're just bunching up in there. So we got that one done. I'm telling you guys, the cap is probably the easiest. Well, I know it is the easiest one. And like I said, you could even not step drill this. You could get away with, like, for what I would do, what I'm going to do next is a 33/64, I think. Is that right? Yeah. For the 14 millimeter threads, you go with a 33/64. Like, really, you could skip that second, that 25/64. That's all that's doing is just adding a little bit of extra room at the end for the nib. So it's a little bit tighter fit, but I mean, really, if you were in a hurry, you could just go with the 33/64 and go all the way if you wanted, I think. And I got a mark on there. That should be where we're going to. What we need to clear here is, you know, this is the drill for the threads, but it also clears the mandrel. So I need to make sure that I'm in about 1 3/4 or so. Yep, there's my line. All right, and I need some WD. There we go. Let's see here, am I missing the chat? Terracotta camo. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that orange terracotta kind of looks like, I don't know if that's what you're saying, Jim, but it looks peachy. It looks like a peach color, kind of. Yeah, you could use other things. Again, if you pull out like a decimal equivalent, 12.5. Oh, that's much smaller. Yeah, I don't find that I need. What's going to change is the height of your thread for that. I think smaller hole is going to give you higher threads. And sometimes that might be what you want. I find the 33/64 is a pretty good. It's enough grip, but not too much. Like technically, I think what you want is like a 13 millimeter, really. If you just do like, because if you got a 14 millimeter, I think you just drop it a millimeter, isn't it? Is that, I forget, Jim, oh God, I just went blank on his last name. He explained how to do the conversion. So is 13 millimeter, what is that? Yeah, so 13 millimeter is right below what I use. So I think that's what I used, was that conversion that Jim. The problem is I got Jim Spalding in my brain and I completely, Jim Hines. I looked at the chat and I saw Jim Spalding and I just could not think of Hines after that. All right, so we got that thing started there. This one usually I can kind of just plug away, get all the way down, and pretty much be done. What I'm gonna do, I had a tough time seeing my mark, so I'm just gonna go in there and make sure that I got the depth where I want it. I don't think it's that crucial to be perfect. Yeah, that's plenty. All right. Okay. Put my drill bit back here for a minute. Now the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to chamfer that hole, and I'm also going to create that little relief cut. Remember we were talking about, I'll explain what I'm doing a little bit in 1 second. Let me just get this done so I can shut the dust collector off and not feel like I'm having to scream at you guys. I can't hear myself talk. Technically, I don't need to. I got to think about what I'm doing here for a minute. So what I'm going to do is to chamfer this hole, I'm actually just going to use this little tool. That creates this nice little chamfer to start the threads with. But what I'm going to do here is come in actually with a skew. Where's my skew? Maybe. Oh, there it is. I'm going to come in with a skew chisel, and let's just turn this off so I can talk. What am I? Oh, I was like, who's talking in my shop? Okay, it's myself. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and put a little relief here, so that, and I do that instead of putting a relief at the back of the threads on the body. I don't like having that kind of dip at the end of the threads. I'd rather just see it, you know, nice and smooth. I think I have, let me see if I have examples, because I think the first ones that I did, I didn't do it that way. Let's see here. Do I have a, yeah, that one's not very visible. Okay, this one, I overdid it. And this one doesn't have it. So I'm going to come back over to the overhead view thing here over at the computer really quickly and just kind of show you, hopefully I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to try to zoom in. And I kind of overdid it a little bit, but I need a little pointer of some sort. I got a toothpick, maybe that'll work. Try and hold this, have it be visible to you guys. Figure out. Okay, so that kind of shows you. So on this one, it's backwards. On this one, let me flip this around so I'm doing this the right way. And get a shot where you can kind of see what I'm talking about a little bit better. Get it on the camera right. I need a camera crew. I think my thumb is screwing up everything. I don't know. So what I did was I put a relief at the end of the threads there. And it's not highly noticeable. It bothers me. I don't like seeing, I just want the threads to go all the way to the back of the body. All right. Or, you know, like that ridge. On this one, I didn't do that. I don't think. Maybe I did. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I did on this one or not. I can't tell, but I like to have the threads just go all the way back there and not have some kind of like indentation basically. So it's just a little minor thing. And so what instead you do is you just, you know, take a little notch out, like kind of angle. It's like giving it an even more chamfer kind of thing on the inside of the cap. That provides that relief. Otherwise the threads are going to bind up. If you don't relieve it somewhere, you'll get binding and it's not good. Like you'll probably eventually screw up your threads. You need that little relief for these threads. So you got to pick, you know, which side are you going to put that relief cut on. I like to just go in on the cap. That way it's just totally hidden. Nobody knows it's there. I do, you know, obviously, but you can't see it. So the way that I deal with it, how I get in there, and for me, this helps to, I like to come in with just a skew chisel. You could do this with anything. I like the skew because it's very thin at that end. You could come in with, the easiest way to do this is you know, if you have just the easy wood tools, you can come in with this. The problem is sometimes like you got to angle it basically to get in there. Otherwise the tool bar underneath ends up hitting the blank. Oh, we're not even on the right. Switch the camera, moron. I'm telling you, I need a camera crew here. So what I was saying is I take my skew chisel and I come in, and now you're all going to be like, what are you doing? It's the wrong side. It's easier for me to hit the other side of this. And I just turn the lathe on reverse. And I come in and I'm just going to relieve this a little bit on, you know, using my skew. And I like it because it's very thin there. Now, you can also come in with a detailer, and that's fine. But the problem is the bottom of the tool, you got this big chunk there. Unless you like rotate your you know, you have to rotate it so the cutter's hitting rather than it hitting the, you know, if you came in just flat, your toolbar is actually going to hit and mess things up. It's not going to actually cut. So you can do it with the detailer. I have a skew. It's much easier for me to come in and just do this because I don't have any obstruction. And like I said, I'm going to be doing it on the back side of the blank, but it's going to be going in reverse. So if your lathe doesn't go in reverse, you don't want to be doing that. Obviously, you want to be coming in on this side. But because I have reverse, I can just stand in, you know, the same position and not have to move myself to obtain this cut. So let me put it in. You got to remember to put it in reverse though. And it's very, very subtle. You don't need much. I'm gonna back this up a little bit. But I just come in, and I don't want a huge, you know, angle. Realistically, you could come in and just notch this straight. But you can also just come in and kind of chamfer it a little bit. And this is one of those steps where I'm being pretty careful. You don't need a lot taken off. Now, what this is going to do though is it's going to start your threads further in the cap and pull your cap down the body a little bit more. So you have to evaluate, is this the right thing for me to do for my pen? I don't have a problem with it. Everything works out fine for what I'm doing. But it is going to alter things a little bit, possibly. I'm not even sure exactly what all the side effects or whatever, like what you have to really think about with that. But there are some side effects to doing it this way. It would be really neat if I had just like a, I don't know, like the perfect size, just like a Forstner bit type thing or something like that. Again, like a router bit or something, just to kind of, but I don't think I have the right. I could maybe come in with like a 1/2 inch. How much difference is that? Nope, that's not big enough. Like I'd need, it's an odd size. Like I'd have to come in with like maybe like a 13.5 millimeter bit could work, but it's hard. I find it easier just grabbing that skew and just nibbling a little bit. It just seems to be the simplest way to do all that. So I'm going to see what you guys have to say about this. Oh yeah, the Tiger blanks are pretty sweet. I love those. So those are available in my store too. I got Tiger and Zebra. Ann McDonald's here. What's up? I'm just scrolling up, making sure, seeing if I'm missing any questions or comments. Probably put my reader glasses on so I can see my phone. V-shaped rotating chamfer cutter. Yeah, V-shaped. What did I do? Well, so I used this, and I actually did this today also, which may or may not be necessary, but it really doesn't chamfer enough out. You need, I can't even tell you how much you need. And every once in a while, I actually kind of screw up and don't take enough off, actually. But, which I should probably just, yeah, that's plenty. Maybe if I hammered away at this, and really got it dug in there with this thing, maybe it would do it. But I don't think it's got enough. Maybe for like a smaller hole even, but this is starting to get really close to the edge of this thing. So I've found that it's easier just to go in there with a tool. So I don't know. Like I said, this is definitely an area where I'm like, I don't know. I don't I don't have enough experience to say, well, this is exactly why you need to do it this way. All I can say is this works for me doing it this way most of the time. And like I said, I definitely personally prefer doing the internal chamfering like that. Let's see, did I do this right? Nope. Okay, now this is one where I definitely want to start with the correct side, the front side, where the letters and numbers are. This is a triple start thread. That's not even the right, what am I doing? Never mind, I don't need to do that with that thing. I need to put the tap. I need to get the tap out because we're tapping, not using the die there. When I was doing those, you definitely want to, the threads that are on the body, the male threads, definitely want to start with the starter side. tapered side, which is where the letters and numbers are. Okay, so what I did was I set that up wrong. Last week I got this, I'm like, oh, I'll get the tap thing ready. So I don't have to change it even. And I put the wrong one on. That's why that's why it was supposed to be, I don't even need to think about this. And then I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? Do it right. God. Okay, so we got a tap, and that'll help a lot for doing internal threads there. That'll really make a difference. It seems kind of tight. I'm going to put some... Another reason I like having the WD-40 around is you can just grease up the shaft thing, get some good spinning going on. Put a little bit of WD on that tap. And this is one, you saw how short my my cap threads were on the body, but don't be confused, or oh, geez, don't let that tell you how many threads you need. I still have to deal with my mandrel, right? And it's got more threads. So even though I put a very short thread on my body, because of this tap, I need to put more threads in. But you can effectively get away with, you know, a pretty short amount of threads the way that I do my body threads. But that's why I kind of want to make my own mandrels. If you can make your own, and I think you can make this something like this on a wood lathe, but it'd sure be a lot better if you had a metal lathe to do all this stuff with. But you know, I would put way less threads on this thing probably, so that I could end up getting away with even less threads in the cap. So I'm going to get that, oh, kind of broke that loose. That's running nice and true. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, back. 1, 2, 3, back. That's like probably way plenty. Eventually what I need to do is figure out how many turns. I've never really sat down and been like, okay, this is the amount of turns that I need with this tap. And one thing also, you can also do the threads first. You could tap your threads and then come back and provide that relief. And sometimes I got to come back and like I said, if I didn't get this deep enough, it's going to kind of bind, and I'm going to have to take another chunk, you know, take a little bit more off on that relief on the inside. But you could run your tap threads first and then come in and cut that back. But what I find is you're kind of cutting your threads, and they sometimes don't really work as well. So if you're going to do the inside thing, I would kind of recommend doing the like I did it. You know, take that relief cut, then tap the threads, because they're starting and ending a little bit easier. Now you can just run the tap in again, but the triple start thread tapping, it's a little bit more finicky than a single start. So there's a higher chance if you have to come back in and re-tap this just to kind of clean those threads up, there's a higher chance that you're going to cross thread it. So just be kind of aware of that. Like, that's one of the drawbacks. I mean, there's a pretty good argument not to use the triple start threads. You know, the tap and die set is much more expensive. Like way more expensive than a single start tap and die set. And you know, it makes it short. It's a quick turn to get it on, you know, to finish, you know, I don't know, tighten the threads, let's say. But the problem is you've got 3 different starting positions and ending positions. So if you are really trying to line up your like grain pattern on a wood blank, or like the patterning on a resin blank, it's almost easier just to do a single start, because the end user will never put it on wrong, right? There's only one way to start it and one ending point. So there's some arguments, you know, whether the triple start threads are worth it or not. And I think if you're just getting started, you know, what I would recommend is I would pick up the tenon cutter. I would spend money on the tenon cutter and just get single start thread taps while you're beginning. because it's probably, the savings on the tap and die set alone would probably pay for your tenon cutter. Like they're pretty expensive. And it's not like that big of a deal, I don't think. You know, and down the road you can pick up that tap and die set if you really want to, you know, get into if you think that that's worth it. And I do. I really like the triple start threads personally, but I really don't think it's necessary. You know, I don't think that even selling, I don't know that people are going to be like, oh, it doesn't have triple start threads, I'm not going to buy that pen. If you make a really nice pen and it's got single start threads, I think that you're fine, you know, for selling too. And I maybe, you know, don't quote me. Oh, dang it, I didn't do it enough. Let me just double check and make sure that I don't have junk in there. Don't think I relieved that enough. That's the drawback. See, it starts getting, it won't seat. It starts getting tight there. Now, the other thing is let me just do one quick thing here. No, that's ridiculous. Let me just clean off. One thing that I've also found is sometimes my mandrels are dirty, like the threads have like junk in them. And so when I'm testing the fit and everything, sometimes it's not because my threads are messed up or I didn't put enough relief. It's because you know, like the threads on the actual cap. It's because the threads on the mandrel are kind of dirty, basically. I'm trying to find where's my brush thing? I guess I can try this thing. I'm just gonna clean these out a little bit, make sure that there's nothing. Oh God, I keep dropping this. I dropped it also, which I don't know, I might have messed up the threads on this. Now, one thing that I'm gonna also show you, just in case I dropped this and it landed and jacked the threads up, you can use your tap and die set to fix your mandrel threads too. So that's, I don't know, I mean, that's probably pretty obvious, but you know, maybe it didn't occur to you. Problem is, this end won't fit through my, I think, but if I take it off, I can just run this and clean up the threads a little bit. There we go. Okay, so those seem pretty clean. And I'm going to put this back because the next time I use this, I'm going to want the tapered side up. So I'm going to put it back in that way so it's ready to rock and roll. And again, I'm not like an expert at any of this stuff. So I've done a few pens, but I kind of have ways that I do things, but I don't know everything about proper ways of doing some of this stuff necessarily. So if you have better ideas, I'm all ears. I'll take it into consideration at least, you know. All right, so let's try that again. I have a feeling I'm going to have to. Yeah. Okay, so my initial thought was I didn't relieve it enough. Is true, it looks like. So we're going to take a little bit more relief. This is an instant. The problem is, like, I don't have my light as bright as I normally would have it and stuff because of the stream. Oftentimes, I've kind of gotten to the point where it's not, and the camera's kind of halfway in my way, so there are reasons why this might have happened this time, because I've kind of gotten this down. Let's see about that. So it's up to you. You could either relieve before or after. Sometimes you may have to come back in and take more out anyway. So But I want to make sure that this is good. So now again, like I was saying, the start doesn't start as well when you take a cut out like that first, or you know, take a cut after you've run the threads. So what I'm going to do is you're all probably like, oh my God, I think I'll just take the thing off the body. This is just one of those things that I would rather spend a few more minutes, if I have to, relieving the inside of the cap and messing around with this. I'm usually not that guy. Usually I'm like, give me the simplest possible way to do this, but I really don't like the look of that relief cut on the body. I've got my limits, guys. I have my limits, and that is a limit. So let's get this tap back on. So it's a good idea, maybe until you've actually tested everything, it's not going to hurt anything to take it apart, but now I am going to have to come back in here. And this is where you really, like I said, the triple start threads, you really want to be careful with these things because it's very, very easy to cross thread them. And it's, for me, I think the other problem is it's hard to, usually you can go backwards and it kind of clunks in. And I have a tough time getting it to do that. So I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to kind of loosen that up. You don't want to push too hard either. Man, come on. Okay, I think I found it. Just to kind of give that starting thread more of an engagement, because I basically cut it, you know. So now it should work pretty good. Hopefully I took enough off there. There we go. Man, it's still a little tight. Pretty sure that I got threads deep enough. I just must not, I'm being a little hesitant maybe with the, it's really close. I'm going to take one more little relief cut. I don't want to go too far. If that's not the problem, I don't want to take too much out. Okay, let's try it one more time. I might have to re-tap that again. Yeah. Oh, I heard it click that time for sure. Okay, let's give it a shot. I think I got it this time. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, I could check the cap. That's usually not, if this works, I'm generally not that worried about the cap on, you know, the body threads, but that's a good idea. Now, where did I have this? Oh, this doesn't match, so there we go. It's a little wobbly. The blanks are also pretty wobbly themselves. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we got everything done. Now you could, at this point, you could run them, I don't know, let me know what you guys do if you make these pins. Do you guys do a full cleaning before you turn them? Do you drop them in the sonic cleaner or something like that? Because the thing is, you could have, at this point, you could have well, most likely there's a little bit of you know, debris inside the blank itself still. And so it's not a bad idea to actually run it through the sonic cleaner before you even start doing all the turning. Come on. This won't come out. There we go. I usually don't, if I'm being honest. I usually don't mess with it, but you know, again, it is a good idea to do the tap test. Make sure that there's no junk, because that actually kind of helps. You don't want to be too hard with it and mess up your threads or anything, but it does help to, you know, blowing it out doesn't get everything out. Digging in there doesn't get it all out. You got to do like everything to get all the debris out. And you don't want to have debris packed in the bottom and then start trying to thread on your, which, see that? This one's a little bit, see here. I think I'm going to go in with my tap, because I'm pretty sure it's not that there's debris in there. And you can look inside and oftentimes see if there's anything blocking it. I think what can happen with these plastics is sometimes they can just kind of move a little bit. So that's why I was saying it's always a good idea to have the little, you know, one of these little T handles handy. If you need to go back in and just give it a treatment real quick. Again, you want to always be careful when you're just coming in and reaming out. See, a little bit tight at the end there, so I'm probably going to be pulling some debris out. Might have just, I don't know, kind of moved a little bit. One of the things, you know, like if the chuck gets a little bit warm as you're turning, you know, it can kind of soften the material. And then when it cools off, it could kind of feel a little different. Yeah, so it just needed a little quick reaming out, basically. So we got that one good. Give that a little tap, get the mandrel ready for the cap. We'll do the cap last. And we'll do that, I usually do the cap last. I like to do the body first. Kind of piece everything together. What time we got? 1 o'clock? We're doing pretty good. Not bad. We should be able to get this thing pretty much done. I don't know, and I think I'm going to start calling my finish. You know, we've been calling it a matte finish. I think Chad definitely does a matte finish. Chad only goes up to 600. So I think what I'm going to start calling, and I think it sounds, for marketing purposes, I think this sounds a lot better. I do a satin finish. Okay? I don't do matte. I do satin because it's silky smooth and it costs more for less work. What do you think about that? All right, now let's see here. I'm going to come in. I'm just going to double check. It's always a good idea to, I've got the numbers. I do this regularly, but I'm just going to do this to kind of, I think it's not a bad idea to do this. I'm going to measure my blank, and you could go in and measure the inside, you know, that you did just as like a sanity check. Measure the hole that you have in there. Now I know what it is because I did exactly what I normally do, but it's not a bad idea to just double check and make sure that you're not going to be cutting too much out. You know, you've got enough material on there, so you can measure using your caliper on the inside, using the little bar. Let's just do it. I'll take it off. I'll just take it off. It takes 2 seconds for me to thread this back on. I can give you the numbers. So I'm going to come in here, try and get on. I'm going to widen the angle. I'm going to come in here with my calipers. I'm going to maybe. want to be, hold on a minute. The other thing is there's kind of a point. You want to make sure that this thing drops down into the point of your drill bit that you know, the drill bit's kind of at an angle. So you want to bury this. You don't want it to be on the side. You want it to be in the center of your blank. What is going on here? So I can feel I'm on the side here, and it slides back down just a little bit to get into the middle. I cannot get this thing to. What is going on here? Usually just slides. There we go. Is this thing correct? We're at about 3 inches, which that's actually, I went too deep. Did I go too deep on that? Hold on a minute. What is happening here? Oh no, okay. This is why I have notes all over the place. Oh, okay, so 3.5. Okay. Okay, sorry. I was a little confused there. So I got a 3-inch hole, and then the outside is 4.18. All right, so I've got an inch before I hit the hole itself. So what I usually do is I go for a 3.5-inch blank. I got to turn this and then I'll measure it later. But you always want to make sure that you're not cutting too deep, cutting too much off, and messing up your pen. So sanity checks are always good. And I had to do a double sanity check on that one, you know. Yeah, the single start for pattern matching. Well, I mean, you can do it on a triple, but it's only going to match up in one position of those 3 starting positions that you could have. So, you know, that's the thing about the triples. Again, I prefer the convenience and the quickness, I guess you would maybe say, of the triple lead threads. Oftentimes I'm not that concerned about patterns matching up on my pens or anything, and it only takes, you just click it back and find the right setup. But there's a lot of people. I got to put it back on forward here. I guess maybe I don't. Slow it down though, sure. And I highly recommend, well, unless you don't have enough material left, I highly recommend putting the 60-degree, using your center drill to put that little 60-degree cone on there. That way you get better grip with your tailstock, with your live center, because it matches up, it's the same angle. If you don't do that, you find that this thing just starts digging out the material, and you constantly have to keep kind of feeding it up to get it's just not holding as well, right? So if you've got enough material, it's definitely a good idea to hit it with the center drill again and put that angle on there. It's going to hold your blank 100 times better without messing around with it usually, compared to just kind of jamming the tip in there. It just doesn't really hold on especially on these resin blanks as well as if it has. It's kind of like the idea between the Morse taper. It holds that thing in there through friction, and so you've got more friction going on, holding the blank and the cone, holding the blank with the cone. All right, now I'm going to be I have specific kind of things that I've figured out, and this is probably going to change if I actually had time to just sit and focus on pens. I'd probably change these, but I'm pretty happy with the numbers that I have. So I actually have, specific numbers that I kind of go for. I like the looks of the pens that this produces. So I'm just going to put that up here. Now, I am going to be changing the cap numbers. and even the way that I do caps a little bit. I usually put a little bit of a kind of a, I don't know, it depends. Sometimes I have a little bit more of a kind of a point to them. Not a lot, but they aren't just dead flat. And so I like a crown to it, right? When I finish that, not on the body, on the cap, when I finish that, I kind of want it to be a little bit wider probably than I normally do. I usually taper the cap down, and it starts to get a little bit kind of close possibly. So I'm going to be a little bit careful with that. I've got these little disc things are about a 1/2 inch. In fact, they are. They're slightly under a 1/2 inch. You drill a 1/2 inch hole, and it'll fit in there just perfectly. So it's like a few thousandths under a 1/2 inch, I think. So I need at least a 1/2 inch left. Now I do everything in the millimeters. I find it's bad. I wish I would have just started everything with millimeters or metric. So a 1/2 inch is about 12.5. A little bit higher than 12.5 millimeters. Okay, so that's plenty. I just wanted to double check on these numbers. Okay, yeah, I'm fine with my numbers. Okay, we're good. Okay, I don't need to alter anything. I was looking at the wrong measurements. I was looking at the body measurements, and I was like, that's probably not going to work. The body's okay. We're not drilling into the body. And I like to get my body, I don't really like having a big shoulder either at the thread. There's just been a few things that I've kind of noticed with the after doing about 5 to 10 pens like a certain way, there were just certain things that I'm like, I don't really like that. Let's see if I can show you guys. Well, the worst case, so that tiger pen, this thing got all messed up. It's just kind of a nightmare. I really don't like having that huge shoulder after the threads. That's just not my thing. But it ended up happening that way on this one because I was trying out different sizes for the threads, and I went like this pen needs to be way skinnier than it is, but this is the size of the body that I like kind of, so it ended up getting kind of messed up. It told me that I definitely don't like seeing that shoulder. So I try to minimize that as much as possible on mine. And these are all just personal preferences, you know. Pretty close, I think. Let's do a little bit of measure. I gotta turn this sideways light on so I can see my scale here. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Oh yeah. It's pretty close, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I'm a little fat in the middle. Which I usually am for some reason. And I like to kind of taper it a little bit. So let's see where we're at now. I'm going to make it about 3.5 inches long. So let's take a look and see where that lies. So 3.5 is about there. I'm going to mark that real quick. Just for the heck of it. I may end up cutting that off. I want to see. I got a little bit more to take off down at that end, so I'm going to lose that mark, but that's okay. All right. That's probably good. I'm going to reestablish that 3.5 inches. Or so. If you guys have been watching for a while, you know that a lot of times I'll keep that thing together and sand. I think it's fine to do the wet sanding. I'm trying to change my ways, be a little bit more efficient. Oh, thank goodness, turn that dust collector off finally. All right, so let's do some sanding real quick. I'm just gonna get this thing nice and sanded up. I don't know if we're gonna, yeah, we may as well just kind of finish this thing off. Man, the threads look good too already. So what do you guys think about this so far? I mean, really, it's already kind of, you know, we're not gonna polish it significantly higher than this necessarily. So it's looking pretty close. Like that's looking pretty awesome. I really like that. And I'm gonna make it kind of chunky. Usually I kind of taper more on my bodies, but I don't know, it's a camo pen. Like it just feels like it needs to be a little bit kind of chunkier than I normally do. Pretty sweet. I went in with the tab 9 forwards and 3 backs. Good call. 9. Yeah, well, what I need to do is I just need to have I need to take some time. Usually I'm just kind of rushing through things. And actually, like, you know, do, you know, 4 turns in, or, you know, whatever, 3, and just kind of see how far, and then measure the threads. The issue is a lot of those, sometimes things are like kind of tapered, and so like if you just look at where the threads start, those first threads aren't actually, I guess it would be on this end. No, it would be on this end. You know, the start of the tap, it's kind of tapered. So, you know, all the the back end of those threads are all deep, you know, 100% threads, and then the starting ones are just kind of there. So just kind of try things out. Look, see how far it went, and see how the cap works, and the mandrel and all that. Now, one thing that I can do without having to like recreate the wheel completely for this mandrel is I can just, and I actually already have come in here. You can chuck this thing up on your wood lathe and just come in with a tool, a carbide tool, and just take off, or high-speed steel even, because this is like brass or bronze or something like that. So, you know, steel or carbide will cut this, and you can just lop off some of these threads. Now, again, it's similar to me kind of messing around with the inside of the cap here. You're probably going to have to come back and chase the threads a little bit just to kind of clean them up with your die. But I can get rid of some of these things with it, and it's not that hard. It's not a big deal. I think I've actually already taken some off. But I also, there's other things about this mandrel that I would change personally. So I haven't messed around with it. It's fine. It's not a big deal, but someday I'll get all my ducks in a row. Be like, this is how many turns, and because I think Jim Hines and like I think a lot of the people like that have been doing pens, these bespoke pens for a long time, like they know exactly how many turns, and you know, I would imagine also that lining up the blanks, even, they kind of know, like they probably have little tricks, like if I go in, you know, this many turns with the tap, it'll line up the threads as long as I like started it, you know, some in some position. I don't know. I'm sure there's little tricks like that some of these people have. I haven't focused that much on doing these pens, so I don't know some of those little tricks. All right, Bruce, have a good time. Enjoy the company. That's cool. So what I'm going to do, like I was saying, I'm putting a satin finish on this sucker. I can see the 600 grit scratches usually. So I kind of preferred going up to, definitely up to the green, and really the way that I do like my quote unquote matte finish, I usually go up to the gray Zona papers. You can't see any scratches or anything, like it just, and it's still dull. You know, you haven't really polished it. So I'm gonna call it satin. You want the satin finish or gloss? I don't do matte. One thing I wanted to mention that I had thought of, that occurred to me, you know, we always talk about waiting for your blanks to kind of fully cure, you know, especially before like polishing them. But when it comes to doing these, you know, your bespoke pens where you're actually milling, maybe I should zoom out a little bit. When you're actually milling things, you know, threads and all that kind of stuff into the blank, I would highly recommend definitely full cure before you start milling and doing all that stuff, because if for some reason, you know, resins shrink a little bit, all of them will shrink ever so slightly. Many of them, like Alumilite, doesn't shrink that much. Polyester resin's absolutely horrible. Like it shrinks significantly. While it, you know, during its curing process, it will, like, you really don't even need to spray PVC pipes if you're pouring polyester resin usually, because it shrinks so much that they just fall out. Alumilite and most epoxies don't shrink as much, but they all do shrink a little bit. And so the problem is, like, if you started milling and tapping threads and doing all this stuff, like, you know, a day or two after you poured the blanks, they're gonna shrink, and that stuff it's not gonna work. Like the drill hole is gonna be smaller itself because the blank shrunk, and you know, your threads are probably not gonna work so well. So you really want to be using blanks that are fully cured if you're gonna be doing milling operations on them. So that adds another reason to kind of wait. Now you can like, you know, if you're just doing like a kit pen, you can usually turn them, but you know, same thing kind of applies. Like you're still better off, like when you glue the tube in on a resin blank, if you glued the tube in the next day, it's gonna probably shrink around that tube, and it can cause some issues sometimes. Hybrids could crack, you know, if you glued it and it's you know, shrinking or moving around on you on the tube, you know. So just there's a couple other things to think about that go beyond just like turning a blank and you know, how soft it is and how well it polishes or whatever. I am currently experimenting a little bit with post-curing my blanks. I did a few batches of the Camo blanks. I ran out and I had to do some, and I don't really want people to have to sit and wait for, like, you know, I don't know. Poured them on Friday. Technically, they wouldn't be ready to ship until Wednesday next week for the people that just ordered some between, you know, Friday, yesterday, and today. So you'd have to wait a few more days, and I'd rather just not have to wait, make people wait for their blanks. And there's a way around it. Just post cure it. So I finally decided I'm gonna post cure these Camo blanks. So I'm actually doing some testing though, just to make sure everything's good, because I haven't really done a whole lot. I've post cured some blanks in the past, but I wasn't really doing anything scientific. I just want to make sure that they're good. You know, there's no issues. I know many people post cure their blanks that sell blanks. So I know there's really not a problem with doing that. However, I'd still rather just double check and make sure a little bit, you know, before I start selling. My thing is, like, it's different when you're selling a product. Like, that's where, you know, like, I wouldn't really care that much. Like, I would find out as I'm doing stuff if the blanks were, if there was a problem, if they were brittle or something like that. But it really wouldn't be like that big of a deal, you know, for me personally, if they were just my own blanks. But if you're selling a blank, like, I don't want somebody to chuck it up and it blows up in their face and they're like, wow, that was the most brittle blank ever. Just because I decided to post cure some blanks once. You know, people's, that first impression gets you every time. Oh, the end of the, yeah, acrylic blanks can crack pretty easy too, though. Sometimes. I don't know. Acrylic doesn't have much give. You know, that's the advantage to Alumilite and also epoxy. They've got more give to them, and that's why, like, you can literally just take, you know, somebody commented on one of the YouTube shorts, I think, or I don't know, reel, you know, it was the same video, but I don't know exactly. It might have even been on TikTok, where I'm shooting the blanks out to demold them, and like one of them, you know, I missed and it went flying in the air and then landed on the ground, and someone's like, oh, you're gonna break that blank, and I'm like, and someone else in the comments is like, there's no way you're gonna break a urethane blank. You know, you can literally just full force slam it on concrete and it is not going to break or do anything, you know. They're resilient like that, where they have more give to them. But if you did that with a polyester resin blank, you can just literally drop it without even throwing it on concrete, and they'll shatter. Acrylic is a little bit more resilient. It's not as brittle as polyester resin, but those things can crack too. So there's a couple different components, some specifications, you know, material characteristics with some of these different materials where, and I think it's actually the elongation, that's one of them. Tensile strength kind of goes in with some of this stuff, but I think the elongation number is actually the one that makes things less brittle. Like, it can be the same hardness, but if it gives more, it won't shatter like that. However, the more elongation, and that's like more like, you know, the taffiness of it, like you know, taffy you can stretch out, right? Versus like a butterscotch, like hard candy. Same thing. If you throw taffy on the ground, it's gonna dent. If you throw, you know, a butterscotch or a peppermint on the ground, it's gonna shatter. It's the same idea. Things can kind of stretch a little bit, but the stretchier things are, the harder they are to polish. Also, it's like trying to polish taffy. That's not gonna really work, or polish rubber. I'd like to learn a little bit more about some of the different material sciences with some of these things, and understand, like, because most materials have, you know, their technical specs available that you can look at, and if you can pinpoint for sure, the one thing that I know, you know, that tells me if something's going to be brittle or not, and this also goes in with the 3D printing resins. The more elongation percentage, the higher that number is, usually the less brittle they are. But I do think there's other factors that also contribute to all this stuff. Probably other than that single number. Okay, and then so let's. I'm gonna just do my little routine that I usually do with the gray. Let's see what just stopping at green does. I like to do a little bit of circular motion, very light. And this is as if I'm trying, you know, like this is the final step kind of thing is what I'm. Let's just take a look and see how we feel about just stopping at green, the green Zona paper on this one. Once again, you know, because I think with camo, the less shiny it is, the better. I think is probably going to be the case. And we all saw, you know, how Chad's looked. He just stopped at 600. So I've tried that and I didn't like it on most of the things that I've tried it on. I could still see some scratches. So let's do a little test with green. We'll just go through all the motions. Worst case scenario, I've done all this extra hand circular sanding for no apparent reason, but I may just like it, you know, maybe good enough. And I'm still calling it a satin finish. 600, that's matte. And that actually does follow. I'm not just making things up. When I was doing woodworking and got really deep dive into, you know, finishes for wood, there are people that have been doing wood finishes professionally. Like, these people are good. I actually bought a whole DVD set of this one guy. I can't think of his name. It was many years ago when I first got started. But he actually talked about that, where you could effectively, instead of buying like a semi-gloss, you know how you can get semi-gloss paints and things like that, but you can also get, you know, for like wood finishes, like polyurethanes and things, you can get satin or semi-gloss or gloss or matte. And when you buy things like that in a can, you know, so your semi-gloss or your satin finishes in a can, how that becomes a satin finish is they add things that obscure the light, basically. They, like, think about it, literally they're adding like little particles of sand into the gloss finish. So everything starts gloss, and then they add to the mixture some amount of some like little particles of stuff that kind of diffract the light and create a less glossy surface on that finish. And so this is exactly the same thing that we're doing here. We're diffracting the light, and the deeper the scratches are, the more diffraction or deflection, or I don't know exactly what the correct term is, but it's obscuring the view, the light beams from bouncing right back in your eyes, and it appears duller. And there literally is a thing between, I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but semi-gloss is kind of a range of scratches, because that's in that video series from this professional wood finisher guy. He literally talked about that. He's like, I don't buy semi-gloss because it muddies it a little bit. Whereas if you just take gloss finish and then sand it down, you know, with whatever, you know, grit, and he had like corresponding grit like ranges that, like, this was a semi-gloss, this was a satin, this was like a matte, you know. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I've always kind of been interested in finishing. All right, so I need to turn the light up. It's probably gonna, it's actually not that bad on the screen, I don't think. I'm gonna keep the light up. I usually crank my light up so I can see better, but it used to blow out the screen, but this is looking really good. I think I might have actually turned down my camera. All right, so let me put my glasses on so I can actually see how this looks. Yeah. I don't know, guys. I really like, we're going gray. I like the gray better. I can kind of see some scratches and things going on. Maybe if I kind of spend a little bit more time, or I don't know, something, but I know that this technique works. Go to gray, do that circular thing, and pretty much the surface is phenomenal. Even with the glasses on, I think. So again, kind of a light touch, you know, like I'm not really pressing hard. You want to, it's tough to say, oh, you want to press just enough. But I'm really, you know, I definitely don't want to be like deflecting the blank. Like, less pressure than would kind of deflect the blank. Just letting the particles, the sandpaper. The thing is, though, between your like speed, which I'm actually going to slow it down just a little bit. Between the speed that it's going and how much pressure you're applying and how much water's on there, it could kind of not be sanding the surface. So I think these three things, you know, lubrication, the speed of the turning, and then how much you're pressing can kind of affect things a little bit. In the past, I found that it just seems like the sandpaper's not. If I go too fast, if I was spinning this thing at like 1,500 RPMs, it's like the sandpaper is really not even like, the grit particles aren't really even getting into the material surface very well. So that's another reason why I kind of think that, you know, you really want to limit how fast you've got your lathe going when you're sanding stuff. Or you might have to press harder, which that generally isn't going to result in better, you know, a better surface. All right, so now we'll do one more round of that kind of roundy round. And we'll take a look at it. If I'm like, oh, that seems a little shinier for some reason, which I've never had an issue where we're doing it this way for like the matte, quote unquote, or satin finish. It's never looked too shiny to me, you know. But if I feel like that's the case for this blank for some reason, for the camo, then we'll just go back down to the green. And that's the beauty, is you can kind of go up and down wherever you want. It's not looking good if you want it a little bit more shiny, or if you can see too many scratches, then go up one more level. You know, go to the blue maybe if gray doesn't work for you or whatever. But it's very important on this step to really, really have a light touch. If you're really digging in with the paper and putting a bunch of swirl marks on it, basically, they're going to be visible. Like, you really want to be very light when you're doing this. At least I find that. If I'm ham-handed, then I can actually see, because you can kind of alter like how gritty your sandpaper is. If you're pressing really hard, you're kind of making it a lower grit, sort of. The particle size isn't changing, but you could be kind of pressing it down further and kind of making it a little bit grittier in a sense. All right, so let's see how this looks now. Yeah, it kind of looks the same. I can kind of still see a few little things. I'm really microscoping this though, you know. Let me do a little bit more here. Definitely don't think it's too shiny or anything like that. The one thing about using just you know, these liquid pigments versus micas, micas kind of already have stuff in them where it's kind of deflecting light and all that stuff. So you're probably going to see the you know, like any little scratches, which there's no deep scratches. I'm really getting a little bit crazy with this, how close I'm looking at this. I just want to make sure that there's nothing like really standing out. But these pigments are going to show scratches, especially the darker ones, a lot more than like a mica powder would anyway. In my experience, that's usually how it kind of works. But yeah, this looks great. So I'm going to take the gloves off because I want to feel the satin in my hands, guys. I want to feel it. How does that satin feel? Oh, I really like the feel of you know, the matte finishes or the satin, whatever. Yeah, that's pretty nice, guys. Let me zoom out for you a little bit there. Okay, I messed around way too much on that. I was having so much fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pop this guy into the sonic cleaner real quick while we're doing the next step. Oh, it needs some more water. Really, it kind of, I think, needs to be cleaned, but I don't have time for that right now. We'll just add more water. So I'm just going to run that for 480 whatever's seconds, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what that thing runs on. 480 is the highest number it goes to for the timer thing. So we'll run that for that. And that, I'm telling you guys, the sonic cleaner, pick one up. You can probably find one used somewhere, like at a thrift store even. And it'll probably, it's amazing what it does. It cleans things so well. And for these pens, like it is the way to do it. Really cleans things up, gets everything good. And you don't have to worry at all or think about it even, you know. Mark's here, what's up? All right, so we're going with the, let's see, is that the right size? Yeah. Going with the section next. That one's always the little bit of trepidation sometimes with the section. I got to be honest, I've never actually blown one up even. Like not one has exploded in my face. I haven't done that many, so you know, I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, anything about it. But I have split the threads on the back, and I think the thing is, this just makes sense to me. Tell me if you disagree. But what I do is I like to have support on both sides. I think if you're just hanging this thing out on one side, turning it, there's still enough deflection to where, you know, because a lot of people say that the sections blow up a lot. Well, I've only had one issue, and really what the problem was is I just stuck my live center up and it was pushing it out anyway. I tightened it too far. And so that's not a good method really, just sticking a cone in this side. So I'll show you what I do, and I think that it is probably the reason why I never have any issues. And I don't go easy on it. Now, having said that, I'll probably blow this one up today, but because that's the way it goes. But I don't know. At the same time, I really think that what I do, and I need to take the time sometime to redo this. But what I do is, this used to be the mandrel that I would use for these, and I did it different well, actually, I think I have. Yeah, actually, I did this originally because I did this many years ago. I started trying to do these, and so I had a mandrel where you can screw this in, and it would be in the chuck over here. This thing would be held by the chuck, so that's not too bad itself. But you still have the issue of you know, if you just put the live center up, it's going to be kind of wanting to force this apart or kind of screw things up. So at this point, what I do, and this was just so that this mandrel works both ways. That way I could sand wherever I wanted and all that. But I think holding it this way is probably not the greatest way. Like if this was just in the chuck and I'm turning with it just being held on by these threads, which are very thin, that's not a good idea either. This mandrel is the best way to do it, I think. But if you put something on the other side that's kind of holding the threads there, and you can add your tailstock support to something else, like what I really need to do is lop this thing off kind of a little bit and actually put a 60-degree cone on the back, because I don't think there is one on the back of this, but it's not going to split it. It's super thick. But it doesn't need to be this long and ridiculous. But I really think that literally, and you can make one of these things. This is just a piece of aluminite. You know, you have all the threads, all the taps and dies All you need to do is just chuck a blank up, tap some threads in one side, and you're good. Like that's all you need to do. So, if it's something that you're a little worried about or want to try it, it's easy to do this. If you're already making sections, you can easily make one of these little mandrel holders. And I really think that that's why I never have any issues with these things. Because it's kind of holding everything in line, Just make sure everything's kind of nice and tight there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just really lucky. I don't know. But I don't think it's because I'm more skilled than anything. That is certainly not what it is. Look like a good satin finish. All right, so let's turn the dust collector back on. Not excited about that so much, but just because of the noise, Yeah, I've actually talked to Chad about kind of changing, somehow doing something different with the section mandrels. I don't think I would do it because you really would want to be doing this stuff. I have a metal lathe, but I'm not, I don't know what I'm not that experienced really with it. And I frankly don't have time to make my own. And I really don't even want to talk to like a machine shop or anything like that. Chad's Turner's Warehouse already does that. They've got machinists and Chad really knows what he's doing, machining stuff already. So like, I'd rather just have them do it and I'll point you to them. Someday maybe. All right, so I have some measurements that I like on these things also. So I'm gonna just double check them. It's mainly just the ends need to be where I want them. Let's see, what are the numbers? I'm actually pretty close right there. What I'm going to do is just take a little nibble off the end of that side. And then I just kind of give it a little bit of a little bit of a kind of a rounding. I don't do a whole lot of craziness or sections. It's always felt comfortable in my hand, so. Figure they must be good enough. I don't know. All right, I think that's feeling pretty good. Now, the other issue that I have with this, you know, the mandrel itself, not my little extra mandrel holder thingy. The other problem is you can't, you know, if you're holding on by the front of the nib, you can't sand or shape or do anything with the front of the nib on the mandrel. So it's kind of nice having two different types of mandrels in a sense. You know, one that has, it comes from one side, one that holds from the other. Because when I'm done, then I take this all off. Once I sand this all up and get it all done on the outside, I'll flip this, chuck this side up, get rid of the metal side, and then I can do my sanding on the other side, you know. So it's kind of nice to have both mandrels anyway. But I do really think that tailstock support part of it, it just makes it so that the thing's rock solid and you're, you know, it's just like turning the body or the cap or whatever. You don't really have to feel like, oh, I don't know, is it gonna blow up? At this point, I really don't worry about that. I don't even think about it. All right, so let's sand this guy up. It'll be pretty quick. And then we'll get to the cap, which I'm so excited about. I can't wait to do the finial thing with my little logo guy in there. That'll be cool. Like, I was also trying to figure out if there's a way to, I don't know, to make this even more strong. Like, you know, we're just holding on by the outside of those threads. Like, one thing, and I'm not going to make any of these mandrels, but what would be neat is if you could somehow have, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this. I have another little section here. If you could have something that where, like, it had like a pin in the middle also to provide support to this center, so that you're not, it can't even move basically. Like, it's kind of similar to the other one, but like the threads are around it somehow. Like that, I don't know if that's even possible, but it'd probably be some kind of crazy, it sounds like some kind of crazy machining that would cost a literal fortune. But it would be pretty neat if you could do it that way, because then you've got ultimate support. Like, you're not even gonna possibly mess up the threads or anything like that. I think it's overkill, totally. This seems to work just fine, but initially I was like, I wonder if that's like possible. Can I have like a pin, but then you got like this cup around it with threads on the inside. I think it would be kind of a machining nightmare, possibly, but. Going too fast there. Slow it down, slow your roll. But even for sanding, you know, you're putting some pressure on this thing. Now, I think that mandrel can hold, you know, whatever kind of sanding pressure you give it, but it ain't moving at all. It's rock solid with my two mandrels set up here. Like the tenon cutter kind of, yeah. I don't know if it's physically even possible to, how would you cut the threads? Because there's not much room. Like, you're only talking like, I don't know, a 3/32 inch you know, difference between where that pin would be and like the threads start. So I don't know how you'd even cut the threads in that. It literally may be physically impossible unless you did like a two-piece thing, which also sounds way too complicated for what we're talking about. But I don't know. But that could be kind of neat. You could put different sizes on, maybe. I don't know. One thing that you could do also without having to do all this extra stuff, you could just put basically like a nut around the threads. Because my issue was if you bring the tailstock up with its cone and you put it into, you know, just a flat hole with no angle, you know, chamfering to it. The problem is if you put too much pressure on that and you're spinning it and you're turning and there's forces being applied, it's real easy for that cone to just basically, that's what happened to me, was it just popped, just cracked the threads. But if you had something that was holding them in place, then you don't have as much of an issue possibly just putting the tailstock into the existing hole at the end of your, you know, where did that little section go? Like you could put your, you know, if you just put like a nut around, it's literally just containing this thing to make sure that it doesn't expand and blow up from the pressure of your tailstock cone. That could be a way to do, you know, to even simplify it. That may be plenty, I guess. You don't need like this, especially this thing's ridiculous. I don't need this long. It's just what I had, and I thought, oh, I'll try it out, and it works, so whatever. But I think you could get away with something extremely minimal and do the same thing. All right, so let's try and get in here. This one's always the hardest one to lightly do the lengthwise sanding. Okay, I'm just gonna grab a paper towel real quick. I like to wipe, I don't know if this matters whatsoever. I've not done testing or wasted time testing. What I'm doing, I like to wipe off between the 600 and then the Zona papers. And I really don't know if this has any validity to it, but it seems like there's more grit particles going on the 600 that could be breaking off. Because that's kind of how sandpaper is supposed to work. Is it continually like breaks off little particles and exposes fresh 600 grit particles, edges under there. I don't know if that's how this works, but it doesn't seem to be the same thing. I don't know. So I always wash, like kind of clean off the blank when I'm done with the silicon. And it's not just 600, it's the silicon carbide switching papers. I don't know. I really have no clue if that makes any difference or not. But oh, you got some brass rod to do your own mandrels? Yeah, eventually I want to do that too. I just, like I said, because I even have, you know, I have a metal lathe. My dad, we got a good one. Like it would do the job fine, but it's like, it would take a weekend for me to just do 2 mandrels. And I'm like, I have mandrels that work and I don't even make enough pens to worry about this right now. Down the road though, like if my focus ever switched much more to like making the pens rather than just, you know, blanks, I would definitely make my own mandrels. I think that you can customize things. Because eventually I think we kind of get to a point where there's certain things that you want your pens to be like. You know, you've got kind of standard sizes and lengths and things like that for different stuff. And, you know, although you don't necessarily need a custom mandrel, if you're continually doing kind of the same things, and maybe you got a few different pens that you make, but I just find that most of the pen makers out there kind of find specific models that have fairly specific dimensions and everything like that. I think, you know, having a custom mandrel, you can really dial in things with that. Yeah, no, there's something to be said possibly about wiping between every single grit. I mean, you could go as far as to having a different water bucket for every grit, you know. I don't know how important that is, you know, I don't know. I think the most important thing is to not hold on, you know, save sandpaper bits. Like if it's not, I don't know, do a few pens and then toss it, get a new piece. You don't need to save, especially when if you're cutting them into little tiny strips and stuff like this, don't save them, just get a new one. I think that's probably the most important thing, because if you're using a halfway worn out piece of sandpaper, it's not helping you at all. It's just going to take longer to sand the same thing. Oh. All right, so now I'm going to do my little satin action. Hashtag satin action. It's hard to say. Okay, now we're getting to what I was talking about though. So I'm going to wipe this off. Probably pretty good. I'm going to take a peek at this real quick. That looks fine. There might be a little bit of a kind of a. I'm just going to give this a little bit more. Give that a little bit more real quick and see how that turns out. The thing I hate about water is you got to wait for it to dry off. See what it looks like. Oh, that's looking pretty good. I think I'm going to do a little bit more. In this case, I'm actually I think I need just a little bit more pressure than I was doing. Okay, so let's take a peek at this now. See if that got. I usually don't do this kind of super crazy looking at it up close and doing all that, because like most people are not going to look at it like that, like at all. So now what I was saying though is now what I really like about having two mandrels, being able to set it up, you know, on either side of the actual section itself. In this case, having one where I can flip it and mount it this way. Now, instead of just having this flat thing that's not particularly, it's, you know, kind of got a sharp angle on the end here, I like to round that a little bit and just give it a little bit of attention, let's say. These are simple things that you can do to, you know, I don't know, whether people care or not, I don't know. And again, I'm not like selling and marketing these things, but, you know, someday I might. And I just know that, you know, well, even from my own pens, most of these things I'm kind of just keeping or whatever. I would much rather, this doesn't look very appealing to me. I guess that's the thing. I think it looks a lot nicer if you just add a little bit of time, just kind of sanding over that end. So, you know, I don't use any tailstock support, but just giving this, I'm hitting it with some 600 here. Just giving this some attention. I even sand the face. I really think that adds a lot to it, personally. Oh. You don't have to do much. It's not like I'm sitting here trying to, I'm not like, you know, I don't need to like polish it up and, you know, or do a whole lot of work here. I'm just going quickly through the grits to get this face part to the satin sheen that we want. And just rounding over that tip to make it just not look like I just hacked it off on a lathe. And That was it. Okay, so let's stop this. I'm gonna get the camera back in here. Give you guys a kind of a shot here. I'll show you the end as well, a little bit more. That's looking good. I'm going to get rid of these gloves. Oops. Ooh, that's tight. I need to get a little, I need to make myself a little wrench thing that'll hold the, between here. I've got like channel locks, but having to go get channel locks every time. I just need like some little thing with a handle on it. That's too big. All right, so, ooh, it's tight. What is happening here? How did that get so tight? Oof. Thought I was gonna break it there for a minute. Ooh, that feels really good. See, now I got a little bit of a round over on there. Not much. I mean, it's not like I did a lot, but it looks a lot better to my eyes having just a little bit. And I actually probably could have done more, honestly, but just having a little round over, it was just such a sharp edge that if you touched it, it would hurt, kind of, you know, if you did that. Now it's soft edge. Again, I actually really could have done a little bit more, but it's not that big of a deal. We're going for chunky anyway. So let's see how this lines up in, yeah, in the body. Okay, the body's in the water here. I was like, where's the body at? Oh, this water is disgusting. Definitely got to clean the water out sometime. But it doesn't smell like a swamp or anything weird, so I don't know if swamps smell bad or not, but it seems like they might. Just gonna kind of try and get some of this water out of here. I'm gonna zoom out for you guys. Then we got the cap. Yeah, not too bad. That's looking pretty good. So like I said, I don't like a big shoulder on those threads. It is lined up kind of. I don't know if you guys remember, but I didn't do this on purpose or anything. I actually had the blank, because these two pieces were part of the same blank. Now the cap is not going to match this. It was two different blanks, but I actually somehow tapped the threads into this, and it was like it lined up to my marks perfect without me even messing with it. So it is lined up. Now, is it, you know, like obvious necessarily? No. Would it look any worse if it was like that? No. You know, like, so a lot of times, sometimes lining things up doesn't really necessarily pan out, but it is lined up the way that the blank was supposed to be. Now, if you look at it, I can see that, you know, there are things going on where they do match up, but I don't think unless you really point it out and get a microscope out, nobody's going to notice that. So, yeah, that's okay. All right, so this thing is a, let's see, I think it's like a 16 millimeter. Yeah, that's the one. Running smooth. So hopefully hopefully this is a good tip for anybody that's, you know, maybe especially if you've had issues with the sections blowing up on you, try this. And I'd love to hear what you think, because like I said, I never really had any issues with that, but I pretty much did it this way from day one. So I don't know if it would be nice to hear from somebody that had a problem, that was doing it with that one mandrel only, the single mandrel, have had issues with sections blowing up or whatever, having some issues with them. And then if you try using the mandrel, the other side mandrel too, to hold the other side with the tailstock, have tailstock support, and it changes things, like you don't blow any up after that, that would be really interesting to hear. Because I'm just making an assumption, basically. Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly why. It makes sense to me, like in my mind, but it'd be nice to have like a little bit of confirmation about that theory. If it really does make a difference. Because if not, then there's no point in messing around with it. Luckily, it's easy to make one of those little things. It's not that big of a deal, but... All right, so for the cap, I'm going to do a sanity check real quick. This matters more on this because I'm going to be drilling into the end of it. Okay, so my numbers and things, what I'm used to, are going to change very slightly. I mean, we're talking about, I don't want to make this seem like it's like a huge deal, but I do want to cover how I'm going to drill this out, and that actually has something to do with some of this. So, the difference here, I mean, this thing is thin. Like it's, what is it, like a, let me get my calipers out here. Tell you how many millimeters thick this thing is. This is like 1.1 millimeters. Okay, so we're not talking about like this thing's like going to be an issue where I need a lot more material on my blank or anything like that. I don't require a lot of room. The thing is, and I've tried a couple different ways of drilling this out. My first thought was like, oh, I'll just get a router bit. Well, what I found out is these number one, I don't know if you can see. Let me grab I need a pointing device to kind of point at what's going on. And I kind of thought this is how this was going to be. You only have a cutter. There's only a cutting edge right here and right here, right? The problem is right in the middle, it's not cutting at all. There's nothing cutting. There's like a dip, which that's not that big of a deal. You can just come in with a tool and kind of clean it up, but then you're doing two operations and that's not what I want. So the router bit thing was kind of out. So then I went, back to the obvious idea, the Forstner bit. My problem with the Forstner bit is these points. Now, as long as you've got enough material, this really isn't that big of a deal. Realistically, it also even gives you a little area for glue to kind of pool underneath there, rather than just a totally flat hole. So I did a few experiments, tried it out, and where did I put that little experimental thing? And this is what I got. So this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with, and this was not the greatest blank to kind of show this off, I guess, but you're going to end up with this little divot, in there, but all you're doing is just kind of carving out this little ring. It's very simple. But you do need to make sure that you're accounting for this hole. Now, would it be the worst thing in the world if you drilled through into your hole? Probably not. Really, it's not going to be the end of the world if the point just kind of poked through where the inside of this thing. I don't think it would ruin anything, but I mean, I would prefer not to do that. So what I want to do is sanity check myself real quick, understand how much depth I've already drilled into this blank. I think I should have plenty, with my numbers. I should have more than enough room with the material that's left on this blank. So I've got about 59 millimeters, let's just call it 60 millimeters depth drilled in here. I'm just going to double check that to make sure I didn't kind of mess up anything. I'm going to make sure I'm in the middle. I'm kind of feeling around to make sure that I'm not on the side. It drops down into the middle. Yep, so about 60. That time it actually did go a little bit deeper. So even maybe a little more than 60. And my blank is 85, 84 millimeters long. So I've got, you know, I've got at least like 20 millimeters or so to work with, which is, I don't even know what that is, like about 3/4 inch. You know, I've got to about there. That, you know, the hole goes to about there, 60 millimeters. So I want to have extra room. So I've got more than enough room, right? Let's see here. So what I usually do is go for a 2.6 inch blank. And it's pretty close. So I'm going to make it just a little bit larger. I'm going to go to 265, 2.65 or so, just to give myself a little extra room, make sure I don't drill through any holes or anything like that when I'm putting that thing in. Now I do like the dimensions, like the ratios of size lengths. I don't think adding that little, dropped my little disc. Oh, I got another disc down here, I think. Oh, no. I don't think that's going to make a whole lot of difference necessarily, but I do want to make sure that we're good to go. All right, so first step, I'm going to put a little, and I do have enough room for my indentation, you know, using the center drill here to give my live center a little bit more purchase. While I'm turning this thing. The camera's like right in my way. Between the camera in my way and I'm wearing the bifocal glasses, and like things are like half blurry, half not. Just the way that because I'm having to move around the camera and having a little trouble here. We'll get it going though. Now the cap is a super simple turn also. I mean, I don't take a whole lot of material off anyway. So this will be pretty quick here. Barb's here. You're just in time. You're just going to see things come together, I think. Hopefully. So this thing, let me just see where I'm at. I haven't done one of these for a little bit, so I want to make sure that I'm not getting too aggressive, and I shouldn't be. Okay, I got a little bit more room to go. Thought so. Just never know. Give it one more quick test here on this end. Yeah, I got a little bit more room to go here. Closer. All right, I think that's probably pretty good. Still at the upper end of my range, so I'm gonna take a little bit more off. All right. Should be pretty close here on this end. Oh yeah, I'm plenty there. And then it could be need to measure here, so we need to be about 2.65. That's kind of where I was looking for. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to Sharpie mark this real quick. Because what I want to do is actually figure out also the diameter at the other end. I kind of have, it's not that important to me, but I do kind of have numbers. And that way I can kind of check and see where's, and it has to do with the tapering. Just kind of have a look that I like. And that really kind of needs to come down. So I need to do a little bit more tapering on this end. But I think that's probably pretty good here. Maybe not. Doesn't seem like I took a whole lot of anything off. Pretty decent. So back to, I'm actually kind of curious to see how I feel about a little bit wider cap. And this is definitely the one to do it with. I was saying that I wanted this to be a little bit more chunky. Seemed like the right pen to make chunky. All right, so let's flip this thing down. And so, you know, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, what I like about this finial thing is it doesn't even require you to change anything. Like you could literally come back and do this after the fact, like after you're totally done with the pen, which is kind of cool. Now, I don't want to have a huge bulbous end on this, so I am going to kind of come in relatively flat on this. I'm gonna have a little bit. It's still like a little bit of crown to it, let's say. But not much. Now, another way you could do this, you could manually do this if you really wanted to. I don't think that would be particularly fun, but you know, it is a way to do this. I think that the Forstner bit's the best way to go. Now, oh, one thing that I forgot to tell you guys. So the issue that I have with this thing is it's got that point on it, right? And so what I'm going to try, I like the point because it does center, you know, it's giving you that centering. When you go into drill, it's keeping things centered. However, what you can do, what I might do is try, well, I bought a few cheap Forstner bits. That may not have been the greatest thing. Well, actually, one of them's pretty decent, but I bought another Forstner bit, and what I'm going to do is just hack off that spur. And I'm going to see how that works for just, you know, if you don't have the spur, we're coming in here just trying to get a hole, you know, implanted, let's say. How does that work? And I think it's going to work pretty good for this. So that's an easy way to kind of get around the fact. Again, I don't really think the spur's that big of a deal. As long as you make sure you give yourself enough room, it's not a big deal. It's going to be hidden. Nobody's going to even know it's there. But you probably, you know, if you just buy a cheap Forstner bit, hack off the spur, I think that's probably going to work just fine also. So let's see here. I got to get in here. Where did I lost the little knob on my my tailstock hand wheel thing. That's not comfortable. All right, so let me see. Is anybody saying anything? Myra's here. How's it going? We're getting things almost wrapped up. We're so close to the finish, guys. This is kind of a long stream. It's taken me a little while to do some of these things, and I've talked a little bit, but it's worth it. I want to get this thing finished this week. See how it goes. All right. Now, again, all I need to do is go in like a millimeter. So this is not that big of a deal. I am going to do this first. Like I literally could have sanded and done everything, you know, first if I wanted to, but I think it'll be better to do this right now before I've sanded or touched anything, because if I ended up going too deep, I could kind of trim that back, like the edge. So I think that it's probably best to do it like this. I guess, I don't know. I'm going to turn the dust collector back on. So I'm just going to kind of sneak in here, let that tip, that spur kind of start. Now, I need to be able to see and make sure I know what's going on. So I'm going to also get you guys in here a little bit. You can kind of see what's going on. I'm trying to line myself up so I can see just about how far this thing is actually cutting. Not that big of a deal, like I said. If I go a little bit too far, I think I've got plenty of room to overshoot this on accident. But you don't have to hit it in one shot either. All right, and I'll kind of illustrate this. So It's just a matter of take a cut and see how this lines up. Now, here's the thing. I've already lost one of these things because my dust collector ate it and I couldn't find it in the bin. It's somewhere in my pipe, I think, in the ductwork. So just be careful with your dust collector. If you got one going, you might want to just point that thing somewhere else while you're getting in there. Now what I'm doing is I'm just bringing this all the way back up, and then I'm just going to start it. And take another cut. See how we did. Now unfortunately I'm not really paying attention to how many turns I took or anything like that. Still poking out. Now, you know, you could maybe even make that a feature if it is not sunk all the way down in. So that's locked up in there. And it also helps to kind of blow that off. You don't want to have a bunch of junk in there and it's kind of messing up your read on this thing. I'm way underestimating how much I'm taking, or I don't know, taking off a lot less than I think I am each time. Seems like it's taking a lot of chips, but not really. Okay. I'm not very good at this incremental sneaking up on drilling and stuff. That's why I didn't like making my own tendons either. Oh, there we go. That's pretty much flush. Oh yeah, that's actually perfect. I can't even feel it. That's dead on. Okay, so let's turn the dust collector off so I don't lose any more of these guys. Probably gonna need a magnet to get this thing out. Probably gonna need a stronger magnet than that to get this thing out. Where's my strong magnet? There's one. That thing is, it fits perfect. These things were, I don't know where he got these. I can't even get this thing out of here. No glue needed, I guess. I don't know if I can get this thing out. Huh. Let's see here. How am I gonna, maybe I could kind of blow it out. I may lose it. Sheesh. Got it. Okay. So we know that's tight. Man, that is really tight. 1/2 inch, perfect. All right, so let's do some sanding. Let's get this going and we'll be done. Now, did I go through or anything like that? Pretty certain that I didn't, but I haven't looked. Doesn't look like I damaged anything or went too far with anything, so that's good. Sorry, I know you're not really seeing that. I don't think you can really see unless I completely change around everything here. But I didn't go through or anything, so that's good news. I'm gonna go put some gloves on. We'll do some wet sanding. We'll satinify it. We'll be good to go. Now it has a magnetic cap. Yeah, I know. That would be pretty cool too. And then Zach, I know, I don't think, I mean, it is, I was like, wait, I did one earlier. So, you know, I did this little sample thing on this one. and it kept feeling like if I was like, oh, that's perfect, and then I'd actually like use my like fingernail, and I'm like, oh, that's not perfect. So it's hard to tell if it feels like, you can't feel it. That's one of the nice things also. I couldn't really feel that it was not right, or not deep enough, but oh, did I throw the sandpaper away? Must have been done with it. We'll get a fresh sandpaper out. And technically that eliminates a little bit of sanding that I have to do. Don't have to do a whole lot of sanding on the cap. I do need to be a little bit careful though, because it's actually so perfect that like you might actually want to go a little bit deeper, possibly, and kind of sneak up on it. There could be something, because I am going to take some material off when I sand, and it may actually not be perfect after that. I don't know. We'll have to see. I like to get in here and just kind of nibble away at that corner there, just so it's not sharp. You don't want sharp parts on your pen. Blue moons do exist. That's true. All right, so I'm going to be carefully kind of come. I'm not going to do a lot with the 600. It's definitely, it tends to take off a lot more material than the green Zona paper, I find. Supposedly the green Zona paper is 600 grit also, but I'll tell you what, these two act significantly different. So it may be kind of, it may just not take off as much. Like, I don't know, somehow it's like the same grit technically, but it's just not as aggressive somehow. Because this takes off a lot more material, I think. I feel like anyway. The 600 grit. All right, so that's probably good enough. I don't know. We'll dry it off and take kind of a quick peek at it here, just to make sure. I feel like I'm stopping a little bit early, but I don't know. And I see no reason to sand or do anything with the inside of that where I drilled out. Okay, that's looking fine, I think. If you're ever unsure if you've sanded enough, you know, that's another reason why it's good to do in between the lengthwise, you know, with the lathe off. You know, so right now, you know, I've sanded with 600 and I put that lengthwise scratch pattern in. So if I stop this, you know, maybe first dry it off. If I stop this, wait for it to fully dry. A little bit of water on there. Now, at this point, if there's a bunch of scratches running this way, then I haven't sanded enough with the green Zona paper. All right. So that's kind of an easy way to give yourself a, you know, how am I doing? Am I ready to move on? And there was no lengthwise scratches, which means I'm good to go, moving up to the green Zona. I guess I had already started sanding a little bit, but even still, I don't know where I was going with that. At this point, it's already good enough, like with the green. I can move on to the gray. But again, I'm going to go lengthwise. And that's not the reason entirely that I do this. I think that creating a cross hatch pattern helps somehow. I don't fully know why, for sure. I have theories, but it also does give you a visual aid to say, okay, yeah, I've done enough. Ready to move on. I had a couple blue moons yesterday. Nice. Oh, the blue moon ads, yeah. Huh. Okay, now I could stop this, look at it, and see is there, lengthwise scratches. I'm pretty sure that we're good. I don't need to worry about that. The problem I have, once you're good, once you have a pretty good idea of how much time it takes, then it's just kind of counterproductive, typically, unless you just want to be absolutely sure to constantly stop and then have to dry it off and do all this stuff. That just takes too much time for me. But it's a good thing to do for a while there, especially if you're kind of new to doing all this stuff, or especially if you're trying like a new, routine regimen of sandpaper and stuff, new products or whatever. It's not a bad idea to stop between each grit and see what happened here. I did this. What was the result? And it gives you an idea of how much do I need to do for this. About. Each pen will be a little different, but all right, let me look at this thing and see how I feel. There's a few scratches. I can do a little bit more work with the gray. The thing is, no matter what you do, you're going to see some scratches. I mean, if you really, really, get the magnifiers out and all that stuff, because what we're effectively putting scratches in it. But what you want to make sure that you have is that under just kind of normal circumstances, we should be putting in scratch marks that are high enough where it's really not visible to the naked eye from like a normal distance, I would say. But that's what's happening is on a gloss surface, the light beam is coming off and hitting off perfectly. Whereas now that there's some scratches, those photons are being deflected weird because they're hitting these little troughs. And to a photon, Zona gray is like creating trenches in the surface, and so it bounces and gets kind of deflected funny rather than like a direct bounce back. That's what causes the glossiness effect, is that reflection of the photons, the light beams coming right directly off of that surface. And that's why you really need that surface. The first grit is really the most important, because if it's not dead flat, if it's all bumpy and wavy, it's not going to look right. You're not going to get an even sheen across the surface if you've got like tool marks and dips and stuff, like, not scratches, but like physically bumps, you know, a bumpy kind of rocky surface. You want to get that as flat as possible, so that when you polish it, or if you put a CA finish on, it also needs to be, you know, flat underneath, so you get the best gloss if that's what you're going for. Now, we're going for the opposite effect, but again, holding this, you know, at a distance normal, like a normal human looking at this distance, you can't see anything. If you get the light, you know, exactly perfect, you get your eyes all close up. But I did make a difference. I mean, there was some stuff that I didn't like the way it looked. There was some weird scratch marks. And sometimes you just need to go back and give it a little bit more attention, to make sure that you get everything, you know, good. Now, I want to look at this really quickly because that felt like hair came out of there. Did I actually drill through that thing? I don't know how I could have. No. Okay. I just felt the air in my hand. All right, so where did our pen go? I'm going to have to re-wash all these things, but typically I would recommend washing all your parts before you start assembling things, but oh man. Wow, it actually, the patterns actually kind of line up reasonably well. I'm going to have to redo my figuring out how to get this out. I'm going to glue this later on. Is that deep enough? Yeah, it's very tight. Okay. What do you guys think of that? Let me get over here. I can't see what's going on. Hold on. Helps to kind of drop the thing down a little bit and zoom out. I should be able to get kind of a better view maybe for you guys. Very bright. I got my light pretty high. So that's kind of the logo that I'm going for. This, yeah, that's good. But anyway, here's the pen. And I think the patterning matches up pretty well between the two blanks. I mean, it's not bad. Feels good. I haven't really given this a real good look. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I like the flat top. Could have maybe had a little bit more like angle to it. But I kind of, for like a normal pen, I don't know that I'd love that, but for the Camo, I really do. I could maybe even go back and just like kind of flatten that off. It is kind of rounded, but that's pretty cool looking. Trying to get a shot where the logo thing isn't getting blown out by shiny light. I can put a nib in this too, actually. I got my tester nib. There we go. I don't know if I like gold. I would probably go with silver. Feels good. I love the satin finish, I'll tell you that right now. Threads are nice. Let's see, let's try different positions. Yep. Yeah, the threads are all good. Patterning in the blank is pretty good. I think I like this blank better. This one's a little bit different. So that's the one thing I will say. The Camo blanks, they're all going to be different because we're talking about pouring liquids, but pretty good patterning. So what do you guys think about that? Yes, please. I love that. Tim, we'll see. We'll see. So not too bad, guys. Not too bad. I haven't really, like I said, I haven't really given this my a really serious look here yet. I've been looking at it through like these weird glasses and stuff, and I definitely like it. You know, if that was just sitting on the desk, people like would be like, "Whoa, what's that?" And I like the satin finish a lot, and I really like this finial thing. This is pretty awesome. Now, you know, am I going to go with this like kind of steel one? I'm not sure how those, you know, this is not like what I'm going to be doing. And like I said, Chad's not doing this or anything like that. Turner's Warehouse is not a thing, and Chad is not going to be doing this. He was playing around with this fiber laser, and he just gave me these things to kind of mess around with, because I was kind of like, I don't know exactly how I want to do this or what I want to do. To be honest, one way you can go with these like finial things is actually 3D print them. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you can even 3D print it, and then you could, if you wanted to get into metal casting, you could cast like metal things, you know, using like a mold, and the 3D printed thing to create the mold. So there's lots of different things you could do with these finials. If you had a laser, you could probably just laser engrave your logo into the top of the blank. So there's lots of different ways to get this done. It doesn't have to be with, you know, discs and drilling and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that was easy. If you have the little discs made, which the other thing is you can buy discs. There are people that make them that I've heard of. I don't know who or where you get them offhand now. I might try to look into that and see if I can get some links, because I mean, I'm going to need to buy whatever I decide to do. But there are people out there that will make this thing for you with however you want it engraved or whatever. I would imagine that most of the people that are making, you know, that are, you know, fully, you know, bespoke pen makers, like they're going to the you know, the pen shows and all that kind of stuff and selling them. I'm sure that they get them made. They're probably not making them themselves. And you can order just, you know, whatever, 100, 1,000 of them, whatever. And somebody will just, you know, create these discs for you. And then all you got to do is what I did, drill it out and glue it in. Now, I'm going to have to blow it out again. And it's not going to take much glue. I'm going to put a couple dabs of CA glue and just, you know, hold it there for a minute. That's about it. Yeah, you could maybe use resin. It might, I don't know, it might be kind of, I'm not sure how that would look exactly. And like dealing with really thin pieces of resin might not be the most fun. I think I would rather, if you 3D print something, it's going to be rigid and in place. And I would probably recommend going with, because this is pretty small and it's pretty fine details. I would probably recommend going with a resin printer for this kind of a thing, or have someone with, you know, you can pay people like on Fiverr, or most of the, there's other websites and stuff where you can have somebody that does either the resin, or there's like another type of 3D printing where it's like a powder substance. And these are like the super commercial, you know, like huge things. But when you order stuff from different places, there's different materials they can use. I'd probably go with the powder stuff, which is like the super high-end stuff, or the resin, to get, you know, really fine details done on something small like this. So anyway, oh, is Divine making them? Yeah, they make them at, I think, a few other places. Yeah, sateen finish. I like that too. So, but anyway, guys, so the camo blanks are available if anybody needs to pick any up. Here's a link to those. There's links in the description of the video too. So there's that. Once again, these like bifocal safety glasses. So it's a normal non-prescription or anything like that, the majority of the lens, but it has the little bifocal things, and they have, I'm looking at the page right now. I got them on Amazon. Magnification strength from 1 all the way up to 4, with pretty much everything in between. These are great. And like I said, having the bifocal thing, if you're like me, and I don't know, you know, if you already have glasses and all that kind of stuff going on, or you need like a prescription plus the bifocal like magnifier, this is not for you. But if you have, you know, if your farsighted vision is fine and all you need is the up close thing, I mean, this is the way to go. For me, this solved a lot of the problems. And what I like about having just the bifocal rather than like the entire glasses that I got to take on and off, it actually makes me, the way that I see through these things, or the way it is, and it may just have to do with my height, I don't know, but it actually keeps my head up a little bit more when I'm turning. Instead of, what I find is if you end up dropping your head down to do things, or especially, we all know about arching, you know, hunching over, but if you're constantly having to look down and lean over a little bit, it really racks your back and your neck. Whereas if you can just keep your head up a little bit more and just look down with your eyeballs, that's the natural position I've been doing on the lathe because of these things, because they're down a little bit further, and it works really well. So I don't know, it's been pretty nice. Here's a link to those if you want to grab any of those things, or if you want to grab a pair of these guys. And they are, I believe it said that it was, yeah, they're ANSI certified. So I don't know if that matters that much. They could just be saying that, but there were other things that were like this that didn't seem to be certified in any manner, and so I'm like, well, if something impacted them, is it really gonna save my eyeballs? You know, so they say that they're ANSI certified for something. I don't know what that certification is, but anyway, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a long one. Sorry about how long it took, but really happy with how this thing came out. I'm going to wash all the parts. I'm going to glue this little finial bit in. I'm going to go find myself a chrome nib, and I'll get the video, you know, posted on for the reels and for shorts on YouTube and TikTok if anybody watches that. So you can kind of see it a little bit up close. I can usually get a little bit better lighting, and my iPhone camera's usually a little bit more light, true to light, and all that stuff. So Myra's asking what strength. I went with 1.25. I find that's another thing that originally when I didn't know how any of this stuff worked, and I bought like 3.0s or something like that, and I'm like, geez, I got to hold the thing up to my like eyeballs. So 1.25 seemed to be pretty good. 1.5 was all right. I kind of need to get a little closer to things with 1.5. But 1.25 seemed to be enough. I don't know how it all works, but these, like at 1.25 for me, seem to work, you know, good enough. It's definitely like making a difference. Like I can really see what's going on now, whereas I was kind of just using the force for like a year or so. So anyway, guys, thanks again for joining the fun. Like I said, grab some camo blanks. I'm making more today. And we'll be back in action next week doing a little bit of resin casting. It should be pretty fun. So I hope you have a great rest of the night, and I'll see you guys next week.